Whoa! What's this amazing, beautiful, futuristic land? I've never seen anything so gorgeous and captivating before. I feel like I'm in a Barbie pink utopia. You there, you! Do you know where we are? What? We're in XCX World? Wow, what a wonderful place! Did I die and go to heaven? Hey everyone, it's Anthony XCX here, the internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well. And let's talk about Charli XCX's XCX World. No, XCX World is not a hypothetical, mythical place where you go after you pass on in life as a Charli XCX fan. I mean, if only, right? If only. No, it's actually a bit of lost-ish media that I think would be fun to talk about with you today. Now, if you look at the main album catalog of Miss XCX, you will notice that she has been putting in work for years at this point. Her discography, her experience, her artistry spans back much further than the Brat era, for which she is very much known now. But again, if we go back and look into the first era of her career, those two initial albums, you see that there's like a bit of a gap between what would be her second full-length commercial album, Sucker, and her 2019 LP, Charli, which is personally one of my favorites. Not only is there a 5-year gap in between both of these records, but aesthetically, musically, sonically, these releases couldn't be more night and day. Not just because the ways in which Charli varies from the sort of very bright and synthetic and 80s influenced pop aesthetics of her debut album, but Sucker strangely was a record that also saw Charli kind of dabbling in some rock flavors too. However, Charli did not simply go from Sucker to her Charli era. This was not an overnight change. And look, if you are a hardcore Charli XCX fan, you know there were some significant and official releases that dropped during this time, like her incredible Vroom Vroom EP in 2016, really a game changer, to mixtape projects as well, which have really gone down as modern classics to many fans, Pop 2 and Number 1 Angel. But even those side quest projects do not tell the entire story of Charli's evolution during this time. That's because there originally was supposed to be a proper full-length album released in this span of time, and this record, internet legend has it, was supposed to be titled XCX World. Now, this was very much a time of change and evolution for Charli creatively. She was beginning to team up with producers like A.G. Cook, as well as Sophie, and really beginning to develop some of the futuristic, neon-flavored hyperpop sounds that she would eventually become known for quite a while. However, not every song and move Charli made during this moment in time was kind of defined by that direction, and we saw some tracks, singles, and performances surfacing that saw her getting pulled in kind of different directions. Most notably the After Party single featuring Lil Yachty, which I was not really crazy about that track at the time, and also, truth be told, it was not one of Charli's best received singles ever. Plus, the Lil Yachty feature on that track is pretty weak. We also saw songs like Bounce coming to light, which there is occasionally like this weird little live performance of this track that I see Charli getting roasted for that just crops up on social media every once in a while. So not only did the mixed receptions to tracks like these kind of lead to this era for Charli getting a little passed over in a way, but also during this point in time, there were numerous songs that were slated to be on this potential album that were getting leaked onto the internet left and right, essentially deflating any momentum these tracks could have had. Actually, during this time, I was past several different versions of this potential album, but I mostly avoided them out of fear that like maybe some of these tracks were too unfinished, would end up on eventual projects in the near future. But with the XCX World era pretty much now becoming a footnote in Charli's overall musical history, I've decided to essentially go back to some of the major songs during this time period and essentially just kind of make an assessment of them. Now again, with the nature of these tracks and the way they're mostly sort of like, you know, being put onto the internet by fans and loosely connected to this time period, I'm not making any definitive claims in terms of like, yeah, yeah, this is like the official collection of XCX World songs, like this is the track list, so on and so forth. Yeah, all these tracks were made during this time period and they are attached to this idea of an album, but if XCX World were eventually to become a thing, there's like no guarantee that every single one of these songs would end up on such a record. We are hearing very much an unfinished thing if you do go out on your own to get access to these songs and hear them for yourself. So here are my thoughts on each of these tracks that I've heard and whether or not maybe we missed something with them kind of ending up in the trash bin of history. The first track I want to talk about is Come to My Party. Now, I don't know if this was intended to be an opening track to a potential album, but it does very much have a hopeful, vibey, bright, positive opening track energy. It's a very sweet potential tone setter, and if there's anything about this track that like really strikes me sonically and conceptually, it's just how much the idea of the party is kind of like shifted for Charli over this period of time from which she was recording this to when she's talking about the party as an idea and an abstract on Brat. When Charli is talking about the party on Brat, it's sometimes a very dark, grungy, strange place where she is caught in these moments of maybe inadequacy. Whereas the party on Come to My Party and in the context of XCX World is this bright, amazing place where all your dreams could come true. Very, very much a shift in messaging over this course of time. The next track I want to talk about is Girls Night Out, which I love this track. It is very much giving early PC music energy in that you are getting this kind of revival of 2000s dance pop aesthetics, but with these chipmunk vocals and these kind of funny nods and nudges and winks. It's well written, great hook, and kind of big Spice Girls energy coming off of this track too. The song TKO is another favorite for me in this era of Charli's music. When it comes to her vocal inflections and flow, she is just really showcasing a big MIA influence here. But when it comes to the instrumental, it's loud, it's jittery, it's crazy, it's so busy. It kind of feels like it could have been a leftover from Vroom Vroom, or could have been even thrown onto the project as a deluxe. I also like the lyricism on the track where Charli is essentially dealing with this guy who's being very pushy and kind of a bit of a pest at the club. The version of Bounce I've heard connected to this hypothetical XCX World album, I like a lot more than certain live versions I've heard. Yeah, its lyrics are very on the nose and very silly, almost to the point of sounding like novelty, but we still hear Charli bringing some of these early PC music aesthetics in a way that just sounds very eccentric, very weird. It's like a type of pop absurdism that we heard smoothed out a lot more on records like Charli and Pop 2. You can also hear Big Sophie influence coming through on tracks like Down Like Wow, especially between the over-the-top bombastic beats and crazy bubble samples. But again, this is one of several tracks from this era that sounds like an earlier iteration of something Charli would do better down the road. The track Good Girls I'd also like to shout out in the midst of all this, because I do like the lyrics on this one a lot. I think Charli's sense of humor really comes through on this track with her singing about, what good girls do and don't do. However, I will say this does result in a song that does feel like maybe a bit too unserious or more unserious than I think she's normally comfortable being on her albums. So it doesn't necessarily sound bad, but it just feels different for sure. But Queen Lizzie is a track that is rough around the edges in all the wrong ways, especially on the vocal front. The performance here does feel very strained at points. Really some of the most grating vocals to come out of any track during this era. And it does feel like Charli trying to explore and find ways to make her singing feel good and sound good and make sense over this kind of instrumentation. The song Bottles is representative of several tracks in the mix here that are just maybe not the best writing. Sort of suffers from some very typical pop tropes in terms of a boring verse syndrome. We're just made to kind of tediously sit through these passages that are only there to lull you into a sleep so that the chorus can kind of wallop you. The song Paris has a sugar sweet sound that is similar to Bottles as well in a lot of ways. In fact, I think it's kind of funny that as Charli continues to reference things having to do with parties and what happens there, that the extent to which there is any kind of like substance anything going on, we're popping bottles, no sandwich bags at these parties. But yeah, as campy and as playful as this track is, kind of making a big deal of being taken to Paris, it's just interesting interesting to me how much of Charli's aesthetics during this time were defined by this like futuristic Barbie pink vibe. I feel like there's almost an alternate reality where this album came out sort of intact, came out sounding the way that all these songs do, and she ended up soundtracking the Barbie movie in its entirety with tracks that just come across like this. Songs like Can You Hear Me as well as Our Boyfriend have a lot of 80s inspired residuals to them that feel like they're just holdovers from a lot of Charli's songwriting on her debut album. Those boom clap type beats, they just do not stop, and the melodrama is over the top too. Meanwhile, songs like Reflecting musically and sonically are very much in line with After the After Party. Again, if there was an entire record of songs that sound like that, this one would land on there, but this one is somehow even less catchy than After Party. Tracks like Waterfall as well as I Want to Be With You are kind of representative of more ballad type and low-key moments from this era, but in terms of vocal expression and writing, just were nowhere near as good as tracks that would turn up on Pop 2 or eventually Charli. And then I maybe saved the best for last here, but the song Sticky, I'm glad has just never officially made it onto any album, anything. If it did, I think it would handily go down as like one of the worst tracks of the 2010s. Like, not only are its lyrics weirdly and awkwardly graphic, just talking about, you know, licking it, making it sticky, so on and so forth, but the fake patois accent that pops up here and there on the song miraculously really takes it to another level. Yeah, hearing lyrics on here about, you know, being like an original bad girl and so on and so forth, it's just not really fitting. But you know what, as terrible as this track and maybe some other moments in this mix of songs are, I still think there is a silver lining to this cloud of, you know, XCX World having not seen the light of day in its time, because at least Charli and those around her had the foresight to kind of see that forcing these songs out into the world due to their quality, due to them leaking, it just wouldn't have done her career any favors, and I think she was probably smart to move on and honestly make much better music in the immediate aftermath. Because as good as some of the tracks in this mix are, even my favorite moments I could really only see being best complemented by getting attached to other records that came out around this time, not basically starring in their own album that is built around whatever vibe they're creating. Like, again, if we had a Charli Deluxe or a Number One Angel Deluxe or a Vroom Vroom Deluxe with a few added extras here and there, I feel like that would be fine. Oh hey, editing Anthony here, just coming in to add a little bit of a roundup list here of tracks that I really enjoyed from this era that I wish sort of saw the light of day, at least in an official capacity. I will also shout out the single Boys, which I think was a great song from this era and is actually like, you know, a proper released song. But in addition to that, I also like the track Taxi quite a bit, which is another sort of like leaked XCX era track that I did not actually address previously in this video. But that's also because I didn't run across it until long after having written this video out, as these tracks for the most part are not living in any official space and are sort of like getting constantly uploaded to the internet by random people, taken down because again, they're not official songs. But yeah, I really enjoy Taxi, I really enjoy TKO, I really enjoy Bounce, especially this iteration that I've heard that has vocals from Kiari Pamu Pamu on it. I really enjoy Paris and Good Girls, and those for me really amongst all of these leaks are kind of like my personal faves. But yeah, as cool as it seems as an idea for maybe there to have been an alternate past where XCX World did actually come out, I don't know, I think we kind of ended up in a much better place with the records and releases that we have now. That's basically all my thoughts on XCX World, its major tracks that kind of defined this hidden and lost era for Charli, and I am going to leave it there. If you've heard any of these songs, let me know down in the comments, I'm sure you will. And over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, XCX World, forever.